Raise it up. Chat pro. So roll. Never fold. So roll. Never fold. So roll. Never fold.
Raise it up. Raise it up. Chat pro.
Am I on? All right, guys, what's up? Welcome to Hustler Casino Live. I'm Alec, Torelli, your host for today. We're going to be doing the pregame show, breaking down some interesting hands I played in previous sessions. I'll walk you through my step-by-step strategy with the hopes to help you improve your game, learn a little bit of the insights into how I'm thinking about the game, and I think how, hopefully some tactics and strategies you can use to improve your game at home as well, in your home games or with your casino games or wherever you're playing. Yeah, what else? Excited for the lineup tonight. We're going to talk about that in a bit. We got a shorter pregame show today, no live segment, but I hope you enjoyed the strategy segment. We're going to break down a couple interesting hands. Connect with me on Twitter at Alec Torelli and Instagram at Alec Torelli. Just be careful. Some people impersonate me, so just be careful of that. But very active and friendly on social. I also have a YouTube at Conscious Poker where I break down all the hands from every stream I play. So today we only have time to go into a few, but of course there were a lot of interesting hands, some of which I couldn't cover in today's pregame show. So check out my YouTube. I'll put out vlogs about my sessions as well. I'm also selling pieces of me in this game as a thank you to everyone's support. At consciouspoker.com, just subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. It's exclusively for subscribers. No markup, and so paid out, I don't know, 40K or something, 50K to backers so far. So yeah, super grateful to be able to do that with you guys. Thanks for everyone's support. Let's dive in, guys. I'm excited. I got a couple hands to review. I'm excited for today's stream too. I'm ready to play. Let's do it, guys. You want to roll it? All right, Neve.
What's up, chat? Well, thank you all for joining us. We got 10,000 tonight on a Wednesday night. I'll be back at it on Friday as well for our big game. But this lineup is awesome. This is a lot of fun. What's up, Master of Null? Spurious News says Mariano is fuming.
Where'd you pause, Neve? Yeah, okay. All right, so a little bit of context here, and I think this is very important. I talk about this a lot in the vlog I'm putting out about a lot of the nuances of the strategy here. We're playing the stand-up game, except that we're not actually standing up because it obstructs the views of the cameras. But the stand-up game is basically a game where the last person to win a pot has to pay a bounty to the rest of the table. And at this game, it was $500. So if you are the last player to win a pot, you basically pay $3,500 out to $500 against each person at the table. So there's a lot of incentive to play a lot of hands and win a pot because let's say you're down to 2 people. Well, you can either fold or make it 300 pre. If you make it 300 pre and everyone folds, you just save yourself from paying that $3,500 because you win the bounty and the last player has to pay everyone out. So instead of actually losing $3,500, you win $500. So there's a 4K swing. So you kind of have to rethink about all the hands, all the ranges, how everyone's playing, the psychology, the metagame, the flow of a game when there's a bounty, because it changes the way that everyone plays, and it increases in proportion when there's fewer players left that have to win the bounty, because those 2 or 3 players are the only ones with incentive to play a ton of hands, and so everyone else is playing defense against these 2 players or 3 players that are playing crazy. So this hand kicks off. I'm short stacked. I just got stacked in a hand and I didn't rebuy, or I rebought short because basically, there's a lot of incentive to play a lot of big hands and ship it in. And when I'm short, basically there's 4K dead in the pot that I would lose if I didn't win a single hand. And so when I have less, it's basically a really good risk reward for me. I'm maybe not explaining this the best way possible, but basically there's a lot of situations where I'm going to be committed to a pot with a very marginal hand, and when I have a 10K stack, it gives you a better price on a lot of those risk rewards in spots where you otherwise, it would be a lot more expensive if you had like 30 or 40K. Anyway, I do run it up to like 70, 80K later in the session, but this hand I didn't rebuy because I don't have a bounty yet, and I want to win one, and I only have to risk like 10K of my stack to potentially win that bounty. So anyway, Art opens under the gun. He has a bounty, so he has already won his chip, and that I don't have that chip, so I make it 1200 with 9-7 suited. I guess this hand is like a reasonable 3-bet just in a normal poker game, but because I don't have a bounty, again, it's that kind of risk reward thing. Like I could either raise to 1200 and potentially win the pot, and then win the pot size plus win the bounty and not have to pay out 3500, or I could fold. So it's like I'm sort of getting a good price with my 3-bet here. And so airball in the straddle makes it 2200. So this like kind of dinky min click raise here, which given my stack size makes some sense because I'm like kind of short. So I guess his plan is like if I shove, he's probably going to have to call. But he knows that I'm raising light with a lot of hands, like as I'm supposed to be. So you can see here, like I wanted to highlight this hand just because the strategy and the ranges and the hands that everyone plays just changes so dramatically because of this bounty. It's almost like there were two poker games. There was the game before we played the bounty, and then there's the game after the bounty. And it's like if you watch the beginning and versus the end, it seems like we're playing a totally different game, and in fact we are. So at this point, I feel like I have a very clear call. The pot's like 4K, I'm calling 1K, I'm in position. And again, like I don't have a bounty and I have to win a pot eventually. So yeah, very weird spot. You don't see this often, but in these sorts of games with these sorts of players, you see a lot of random shit. So anyway, I call, let's take a flop.
Yeah, he's had a rough go of it so far. But we're only 2.5 hours into a 5-hour show. Plenty of time.
Thank you, 6,900.
Easy game, Torelli with the 9-7. He's got top two.
So in this spot, I see a lot of, like, when I'm working with clients, we're talking about hands, we're going over strategies. A lot of people get these spots, what I think is they get them wrong. And you want to kind of think about what you're trying to accomplish before you're making any bets. And so I think in this spot, people are typically like, oh, I'm short and I flop top two, I want to protect my hand, I'm just going to ship it in. And it's like, what is a raise here for me actually accomplishing? Like, if my opponent has aces, raising doesn't really do anything. Like, yeah, he's going to call me with aces. If airball has kings instead of king queen and I ship it, yeah, he's going to call. But that's not necessarily gaining much value, because if I just call the flop and the turn's a deuce and he goes all in, he's going to go all in with his kings anyway. So I'm not gaining additional value from my opponent when he has aces or kings by raising, as opposed to calling. So I basically win, I double up regardless of what I do, as long as I don't fold, obviously. So there's not really much additional benefit to a raise. But what raising prevents from happening that I could otherwise get value from is when airball is bluffing, I don't get any value from a raise. So if he has king queen and I raise, what's he going to do? He's going to fold. He has king high. He's going to fold. By calling, two really good things happen. Number one is if he has king queen, he can hit a king or a queen on the turn. So that's very good for me because he's going to think that hand is good. He's going to think his top pair is good just because I flat called the flop. He's committed to the pot. He's going to go all in, and I'm going to stack him. Or I'm going to double up, whatever. Number two, if he doesn't hit a king or a queen, he might hit a card that he can bluff. Like, I don't know he has king queen. Maybe he has ace king. But regardless, there's turn cards that he can bluff and represent. So if a turn comes an ace and he has king queen, maybe he bets because he thinks he's repping the ace and he thinks I'm going to fold like pocket eights or a 7 or a 9. So there's two good things that could happen by calling. One is he can hit a hand, improve, and I could double up. And number two is he doesn't hit a hand. He hits a card that he can bluff, and I double up through that bluff, or I win a big bet on the turn. So calling's really important here. It's also like just it's very important. Like if we are very deep you can make a case for raising. I think that strategy changes based on the stack depth and based on the opponents. So there's a lot more to this hand if I'm like 100K deep, obviously. But it's really important to adjust your strategy based on the situation, based on the stacks, because that kind of indicates the best strategy. And you want to be thinking about you can see how multifaceted the hand is. You want to be thinking about all the different ways that you can get value from a raise versus value from a call, like what types of hands you're targeting. And really what I always impart on my clients is like, what is your bet trying to accomplish? Like, what are you hoping that happens here with a raise? Or what are you hoping that happens here with a call? And so reasoning from those first principles, I feel like helps people make better decisions at the table. So anyway, I just call here for the reasons we discussed, and let's take a turn.
Thank you, Veen.
I might switch over to Modelo, man. Nice. Classic guy. Yeah.
Blank on the turn. Airball drawing dead now.
Yeah.
All right, so checks to me on the turn, and again, this is a spot where it's like a similar reasoning that a lot of people I work with have, like, as they would on the flop. It's like, oh, he checked to me. There's a straight draw. Let me protect. Let me get value. I want to get value from jacks, or I want to get, I want to protect my hand in case he has a draw or something like that. And like, a couple things here to consider. Number one, if Airball had kings or aces, he's probably just going to jam the turn, right? Like he has an overpair. He's going to bet, or maybe he's not going to jam, but he's going to bet. Like he's going to bet 4K or 3K or whatever. So it's really not that likely he has an overpair. But even if he has an overpair like kings, if I check behind and the river comes, he's going to go all in with kings anyway. He's going to want to get value from what he thinks I have, which is like top pair or ace high or like a mid pair or whatever. So I'm not really losing any value from his aces or kings by checking the turn. But it's unlikely he has those hands because of the fact he did check. But again, even if he does have them, I'm going to get value from those hands on the river regardless. But again, there's two value, same proposition on the flop exists on the turn. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong, is they kind of get the flop right and then they get the turn wrong and they miss the opportunity that could come on the river. So on the turn here, two things happen from me checking. Number one, if he has a hand, he can make a pair on the river. If he makes a pair on the river, like a king, a queen, a jack, an ace, he's going to think it's good. I called the flop, I check behind the turn, my hand looks weak. He's going to think that pair is good, and he's going to value bet or go all in, or he's going to bet and I'm going to go all in, and he's going to be stuck. Number two is if a scare card comes on the river, he can then continue bluffing that card, just like he could have on the turn. So I want to continue the same strategy that I had on the flop. I want to continue that down the game tree on the turn to allow the same things to happen on the river that did not happen for me on the turn. This was not a turn card that he bluffed. It was not a turn card that potentially gave him top pair. It was not a scare card for him to bluff. So this wasn't, I mean, it's a safe card for my hand, but it didn't accomplish any of the things that I was hoping that would happen on the turn. So I have to delay that gratification and wait until the river to hope that that same opportunity comes for me to trap. So checking behind the turn here, very important. This is, getting these two things right in the hand is crucial in a spot like this to get the most value. So anyway, I'm laying the trap, checking the turn, and let's go.
But still, I feel like when it's in the can, it tastes like it's...
Oh, that is an unfortunate river for airball. You're drawing dead and you get there.
Like, you can tell, soda too, like you can tell when it's in the can.
So this is like perfect example of like this kind of playing out. Like the river's a king, he hits top pair, but I let him get there. I let him see two cards to hit that top pair. So raising the flop, it wouldn't have worked. Jamming the turn, he would have just folded, it wouldn't have worked. But I would also argue that like I might not have needed this king to come for me to double up or me to win a big pot. Like maybe an ace comes. What's he gonna do on an ace? He's gonna bet, like as he should. It's like, it's a good bet for him to bet an ace because he could rep the ace. It's a good bet for him to bet like a jack, or maybe he bets a club, or maybe he bets a 5, or maybe he bets a 6. And so like, there are certain spots in these games where like sometimes I lay these traps and sometimes my opponents get there, or sometimes they like, backdoor a straight or a flush, or like maybe, let's say he had ace 5 and the river's a 6 and he hits a straight and then like he bets and I call and I lose. Like those things could happen, but you have to play the odds. You have to cater your strategy to the most likely outcome. And some of the time, like, look, it's not 100% or 0. This isn't fucking like, 2 + 2 is 4. This is a game where there's variance, there's luck, there's uncertainty. And you have to make decisions based on probability. And so some of the time you make the right decision, it's gonna work 80% of the time. But some of the time, maybe in this spot, maybe he has a gut shot, like 10 jack, and I let him hit an 8, and he doubles up through me, and he would have folded if I bet the turn. But that's one possibility. But the other possibility is he hits a 10 and I double through him. He hits a jack, I double through him. He hits a queen, king, or ace, bluffs those cards, I double through him. So it's like you have to play your hand and weigh it to the most likely scenario. And I see a lot of what's called results-oriented thinking, meaning people see the result of the hand, they see the outcome of the hand, and then they reason based on that outcome that you either made a good play or made a bad play. But in reality, you have to separate yourself. What pros are doing is they're separating the merit of the decision and their own first principle thinking and their like logical deductive reasoning from the outcome of the hand. They're playing towards what's the best long-term outcome independent of the results. That's like a super important concept that poker teaches at a high level, but it's really important to like truly internalize that and be ruthlessly like, you know, vigilant and honest with yourself about how the quality of your decisions are independent of those results. So like if I would have lost this hand because he had like, you know, queen 6 of diamonds and hit a 5 on the river, like I would still be here saying, look, I played it right. I let him catch up. I let him, you know, maybe hit a card that he could bluff on the river, or like let him hit a top pair on the river. Like if he hit a queen, I would have looked like a genius. If he hits a 5, I look like an idiot. But it's like, you're still making the same quality of decision, right? So just separate those results from the merit of your decision and focus on the process and really think critically about all the possible outcomes. And I'm really confident that'll definitely help you on your game. So I hope that helps. I really wanted to highlight that concept. I went on a rant here, but passionate about this shit. Let's go to the next hand. We got a few minutes left. Let's do it.
Thanks. I just wanted you to feel like you were running hot.
You're so desperately looking for something to make me feel better.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to make you feel
much,
better.
bro.
I know, but I'm trying.
Hey, you won 125 bucks, man.
Like, if I
All right, sorry, I'm pulling up the hand here. Yeah, got it. Okay, so we're back on this bounty game here. Sorry, guys, I'm pulling this up on my computer. My internet's lagging. Okay, so we're playing this bounty game. Same sort of thing. Mike X and I don't have a bounty. So neither of us have this little, neither of us have won a pot, which means both of us are at risk of losing 3,500 as opposed to winning 500. So we're both at risk of a 4K swing if we do not win a pot. I don't remember if Fora or Art had won a pot. I guess you can look here. I could probably see if I see that. If they have a little yellow chip in front of them, that means they won a pot. But they're really not in the hand. It doesn't matter. Mike X comes out firing in the big blind, makes a big raise. This is not a 3-bet. This is just a single raise. And at this point, we're deep. Now I have 40K, so I have 400 big blinds here. Like, the strategy of the game changes a lot. I ran it up. I doubled up a few times, whatever. And so, you know, we're both 400 big blinds deep. He comes out raising to 2K. I have a pretty good hand here to flat. Like, yeah. Oh, I have pocket threes. Sorry, I guess it's not showing in the graphics. I have pocket threes. I have a pretty good hand to flat. Like, it's actually not bad for me if Fora and Art call, which I expect them to do a decent amount, especially Fora. I think Fora's pretty much always calling here when he limps under the gun +1, because like you have to expect that someone's going to raise behind you, so you have to limp expecting to call. And then Art closing the action on the button. I don't know that he has 9-8 offsuit, but like if he has, you know, a random hand like a suited gapper or ace high suited, whatever, like those hands are going to call. So it's really likely that I call 2K and we go 4 ways to the flop, and the pot is 8K. So I'm getting, you know, 3-1 or more on my call because I'm assuming the other players are going to call behind me, and that's a pretty good spot for a pocket pair. Like, I don't have a button, so, you know, I have to win a pot eventually, so that allows me to play looser mathematically. But also, like, if Mike X has a big hand, or like, you know, Fora flops top pair behind me or something, and I flop a set, like, I'm going to win a big pot. So this is a really good hand to call with. You definitely want these hands that play very well. Like a hand like, you know, Queen Jack offsuit here is not good to call with, because that hand is very tricky to play when you don't have the lead. Your opponent is repping a lot of strength and there's players behind you. You don't want to play that hand in a 4-way pot. It's not a very good hand. It seems good because you have 2 high cards, but like it doesn't play that well, and it's a tricky hand to play, and you end up potentially losing more money post flop if you hit, you know, your top pair or whatever. So these types of hands are very good to play because they're very easy to play. If I flop a set, pretty confident I can get all my money in and be very confident that I'm putting it in when I'm a favorite. And if I don't flop a set, I could pretty confidently fold my hand and just not really worry about making a mistake. So I have a very clear call here. I actually really like this spot. And then I'm hoping, I'm happy to go heads up in position because then it's easier to win the pot. But I also don't mind going 4 ways to the flop here just because, again, if I flop a set, I'm going to win a big pot. If I don't, I'm not. So it doesn't really matter there's extra people in the pot. In some ways, you could argue that it helps me that there's other people in the pot because when I do flop a set, it's more likely that one of those other players actually has something to contend with. And that's good for me because I want to pile in chips. Anyway, I call and let's see what happens.
I'm in your shoes there. I'm stuck another 100 because I'm like, one time, fucker. Like, I'm going to get you. And I just lose both throws the first time.
9 high flop. Set of 3s for Alec Torelli.
Like for life.
Foro's got a 6. Mike X has got ace high.
Once or twice. If you wanted once, I would have done once.
All right, so great flop for me, 9-6-3, got my dream flop, obviously. Mike X comes out betting. Really important here, I think, for me that I just call. Our stacks are kind of awkward to raise. If I make it like 12K here, I'm kind of putting him in a spot where he's committed to this pot. Like basically he's gonna like jam with his overpairs, maybe some bluffs, like maybe ace king jams as a bluff, but probably not. Or he's gonna fold. And I don't want ace king to fold. So like, again, you're noticing like my playing style in these spots, like it's very thematic, is like, you're not worried about what happens when your opponent has aces. Like if he has aces, great. I'm gonna win all of his money regardless of whether I call the flop or raise the flop. If I call the flop, he has aces, the turn is a jack. It's a jack in his hand. Say it's a jack, he's gonna bet, I'm gonna call, he's gonna jam the river, I'm gonna call, or he's gonna check, I'm gonna bet, he's gonna jam. Like we're gonna get the money in. I'm not worried about it. What I am focused on is what happens when he doesn't have aces. He's drawing dead with ace king, basically drawing dead. In Hold'em, this is pretty much dead. So that's a big consideration. If I call and he hits, if I raise and he folds ace king, I just win the pot. If I call and he hits an ace or a king, I double up. So I'm allowing him to hit 6 outs on the turn or on the river. So he has 6 outs twice. And if he hits one of those, I'm gonna double up. If he doesn't hit one of those, the same theme applies like it did with airball. He might bluff a scare card on the turn because he has the lead in the hand. He doesn't have a button. My range looks weak when I call. So one thing I always tell my clients is think about poker like this. You make money in poker by having your hand look the opposite of what it is. If you make your hand look strong and your hand is strong, your opponent's gonna put you on a strong hand and just fold. If you make your hand look weak when it actually is strong, you confuse your opponents because they think, oh, your call is weak, and then they keep bluffing. Or your call is weak, they hit top pair, they think it's good, and they value bet, and they hang themselves. So you make money in poker by making your hand look like the opposite of what it is. It sounds so simple, but it's not often applied in practice. So this is a very important concept here because like this sort of sets the whole tone for the hand. So I think a lot of people, in spots, they're like, oh, I flop a set, I'm gonna raise, and then they raise and they win the pot, and they don't even think about the fact that they potentially missed tens or $20,000 in value, like, or whatever, hundreds or thousands, depending on what size game you're playing, hundreds of big blinds in value, however you want to, metric you want to use, potentially. The other thing to consider in this hand is Fora is behind me. So like, yes, I could let Fora draw if Fora has like 7-8 and he hits a 10 on the turn and then like, oh, people are like, oh, you let him get there, you should have raised the flop. It's like, no, like Fora having 7-6 off behind me is very good for me to flat because Fora is basically drawing dead, and if Fora calls and then hits a 6 on the turn, I now cooler Fora because I flat called the flop. I maybe let Fora make a play at the flop. Maybe I call, Fora doesn't think that I have anything, and bombs it, makes it 15K, and then, I hang him. Right? So a lot of good things happen by calling. So, it's important, again, separate the results from the merit of the play. Like sometimes I'm gonna call here and my opponent's gonna happen to have flopped a gut shot, call with a gut shot, hit the gut shot, and I'm gonna get stacked, and it's not gonna work out for me. But most of the time, you're playing the hand based on the long-term value, based on the unknown information that you have. Like I can't see their cards. Like if I knew Fora had 8-7, I would maybe consider raising the flop to not let Fora draw for free, right? But again, I don't know that. Fora could be drawing dead with Jack-10 offsuit. So like, I'm not really worried that just because there's a straight draw on the flop, that number one, someone has a straight draw, and number two, that they're gonna hit that straight draw and like cooler me. Like, most of the time that doesn't happen. So again, you wanna play your hand towards the most likely outcome that you're trying to optimize for. So I talk about this more in a free product called my hand range funnel. It basically helps you put your opponents on a range, meaning figure out the most likely hands that they have, and then develop a strategy to outplay them. So it's totally free. It's at consciouspoker.com. You can just enter your name and email anywhere, and we'll send it to you. You also get subscribed to our newsletter. It goes out every Monday. Poker tips, exclusive content, chances to buy a piece of me at the Hustler for no markup. It's exclusively to fans as a thank you for your support. It's at consciouspoker.com, so check that out. All right, I flat call the flop here. Confident in this play. Let's see what happens.
No, I actually.
I feel like 4 might get himself in trouble on this one. I just got a feeling.
My favorite
Got
is
it.
when
No, he lets it go. Good for him. I know nothing, clearly.
They're like, what do you want? The other guy's like, oh, whatever you want. The other guy's like, whatever you want. And then you always know they're
Mike X drawing dead.
Yeah, they're never like, all right, let's.
Yeah, like, okay, lunch. Like, I've only ever seen that one time, and it was JR and Double M, and I was like, that's reasonable. Like, they're like, whatever you want. The other guy's like, whatever you want. They're like, okay, just once, like, whatever. It's like 600K pot.
And Mike X is just going to keep firing.
Yeah, okay. Yep, so turn card, Jack of Diamonds. Mike X comes out firing. Again, this is all part of like setting up this hand like I did on the flop. Like this is not a bad bet by Mike X. This is a reasonable bet. The Jack is a much better card for him than it is for me. I want you to think about why. Why is the Jack a better card for Mike X than it is for my hand? And why is he betting this turn? Why am I saying that I think it makes sense for Mike X to bet this turn? Something you want to think about on your own. The reason is because there are more hands that Mike X has that contain a Jack that bet the flop as bluffs than there are hands that I have that call the flop with a Jack. Because I'm not calling the flop with a Jack in my hand unless I have Jack 9. Like what hands do I call the flop with that contain a Jack with a player behind me? I don't really have Jacks in my hand. Like maybe I'm floating with Jack 10 of spades, like a backdoor straight draw and like a backdoor flush draw and 2 overs, like maybe, but like not really. He could bet the flop with ace jack, queen jack, king jack, jack 10, jack 8. Like he can bet the flop with all those hands very easily. He's the pre-flop raiser, he's the C-better. It's very likely he's betting with all those hands. Mike X can also have queens, kings, and aces a lot easier than me. Again, he raised pre-flop, I just called. It's easier for him to have queens, kings, and aces. So it's not a bad spot for Mike to bet here. This is a reasonable bet by Mike. I actually am impressed by this bet, frankly, because, you know, depending on why he bet, if he's betting for the reasons we talked about, I'm impressed by this bet. Sometimes, and I'm not saying this happened, I don't know why he bet this turn. But sometimes people make the right play for the wrong reasons because there's only 3 options, bet, check, or fold. So sometimes people like get the play right for the wrong reasons. Doesn't make it the right play. Anyway, I'm digressing. I like this bet by him. Again, I really like in this spot on the turn, me just calling. 2 reasons. Like 3 reasons. Number 1, again, going back, if he has aces, I'm not worried. If he has aces, I'm gonna call, he's gonna go all in on the river, I'm gonna call, I'm gonna stack him regardless. My net EV against aces is neutral whether I call or raise. I'm not worried about anything. He's drawing to 2 outs, but he's not even drawing because, it doesn't even matter because if I go all in on the turn, he's gonna call anyway. He's gonna realize his equity with aces all of the time. It does not matter. Number 2, if he's bluffing, I let him continue bluffing. If he has ace king, let's say I call and the river comes a diamond and he decides to bluff, I let him bluff. Number 3, if he has ace king and the river comes a king or an ace, he's going to think his hand is good and value bet. So there are 2 reasons to call and there are no reasons to raise. One of the risks of calling that I've kind of highlighted throughout this pregame segment is that if he does have a hand like king queen that will fold to a jam but realizes his equity if I just call, he could hit a 10. Yes, that could happen. There are 4 outs and he could hit a 10 like 8% of the time. So I'm risking 8% of the time, for example, if he has king queen, for him to potentially improve. But 92% of the time, he doesn't improve to a hand that's better than mine, and he either makes a top pair and gets stacked or bluffs me and I double up. So it's 92 to 8. But I am very confident if he had king queen and the river came a 10, people would say I misplayed my hand. Whereas if I have king, if he has king queen and the river comes a king, and he goes all in as a top pair value bet, people would say I trapped him beautifully. It's really important to separate the quality of your decisions from the results. Like I cannot stress that enough. It's like so important. Like this is like the main thing that pros do that amateurs don't. Okay, so I'm playing this hand as if like I don't know what he has. Of course I don't know what he has. And I'm thinking about all of these things, and I'm thinking about how do I maximize the value of my threes while taking some risk. It's a calculated risk. It's not a gamble. It's a calculated risk. Yes, he could have, a gut shot like whatever, king 10 and improve, and hit a queen and stack me. Sure, but I'll take that risk. Like, I'm trying to focus on how do I win the extra 22K he has when he doesn't have aces. That's my main focus, not, oh, what can happen if he hits 4 outs against me and I get coolered? Like, who cares? It's like a very low probability event. So really important to flat here. The other reason for flatting is that a lot of my other weaker hands are going to flat. What am I going to do with a 9? What am I going to do with 10s? What am I going to do with 8s, 7s? You know, maybe a straight draw, like maybe, you know, king queen if I floated the flop, or maybe 7-8, or maybe I have 9x of diamonds, or 6x of diamonds, or ace 6 of diamonds, or, you know, 10-9 of diamonds. Like all those hands, what are they going to do? They're going to call, realize their equity. They're weak hands. So anytime you're raising here with your sets and you're calling with all these weaker, mediocre bluff catchers, you're basically making your range look very weak on the turn, and you're never showing up with strong hands. So makes you very easy to play against, and you want to keep your range what's called balanced, meaning you're doing the same thing with strong and weak hands. Again, I talk about it more at consciouspoker.com. Check out our hand reading system. It's a little bit more advanced. But all this is to say, I really like a call here. Let's see what happens.
Anyway, Mike X has it in his mind that he's going to bluff. He's like, I'm bluffing, I don't care. And Torelli's like, okay, I'm going to give you enough rope to hang yourself. And Mike X has got the ace of diamonds. I mean, if there was a card to bluff at, is this the one? Does he just move all in? He might. He's got the ace of diamonds once again.
Yeah. When he knows he wants to play. Yeah.
Nah, he gives up.
Nothing wrong with it.
You guys all did tell me I should do one.
All right. Yeah, so actually, Mike X gives up here. I won't even mind a jam. I guess, you know, he has that ace of diamonds. So it's like, it's really tempting to jam here. He does show some restraint and give up. Again, neither of us have a button. So like, there's that whole bounty thing that we didn't talk about. We talked about in the beginning, but you know, there's all of that bounty metagame going on where like he might think I'm wider than I am because I'm trying to win the bounty, and I know he's wider than he should be because he's trying to win the bounty. So it's like, you know, there's that whole metagame going on here. He checks. I have a very, what I think is a clear jam. Of course, the diamond got there, the straight got there, and, you know, I could be up against, you know, he could just check call with ace king of diamonds, and I'm going to get wrecked, and I let him get there or whatever. But, you know, at the end of the day, if he has a jack that he bet the flop with and then, you know, continued on the turn, or pocket tens, or queens, kings, aces, like all those hands are in a very tough spot versus jam. If I'm bluffing here, like if I show up on this river with a bluff, like let's say I have 10-8, you know, gut shot on the flop, open-ended on the turn, I double float, repping the diamonds, like I'm gonna jam. If I have like, maybe I show up with like 7-5 sometimes, like that hand maybe turns it into a bluff. Like it doesn't really matter. We don't have to go into all the hand range funnel that I go through, like about all the hands I could have. My point is here is if I wind up on this river with a bluff, I'm bluffing. Like this is a good card for me to bluff. The flush got there, the straight got there. Maybe I was trapping with a set or two pair. Like if I'm bluffing here, I'm always bluffing. So to balance that out, really important here that I show up with some sets for value, and really puts him in a tough spot. If you're not betting your sets here, you're just not betting often enough on this river. Make yourself too easy to play against. And so you really have to like take, you know, I don't want to say marginal spots, but you can't just wait for like nutted spots. You know, you really have to, you know, play your hand for value and not worry about the offset times that you could be beat. So anyway, I think I have a clear jam, and tough spot for Mike X. Let's see what happens.
Me and Henry are experienced at losing large amounts of money. When we understand
Torelli moves all in.
amount of money, you get back the money.
Not much you can beat here with ace king. You can't even beat. You can't beat 7-8. You can't beat 4-5. You can't beat 7-5. Trying to find a straight draw you can beat even. I mean,
I lost my chance.
yeah, this is just
That was the one.
22.
hard to imagine a scenario where Mike X is ever
No,
good
it's not
here.
20. This is 20. It's like 22.
It's a little under.
Yeah.
Just from the stand-up game.
Hey man, you're the boss now. You're the best.
That's all you do.
22.
Mariano says thanks for making the game good.
We owe you a lot, man.
22,000.
You guys have given me a lot already, don't worry.
100%. Yeah. All right, so
22,
great outcome in this hand.
25.
I think both hands kind of highlight the same point, which
And
is...
Mike just called. My mouth is dropped. I just,
Thank you.
wow.
So I think both hands kind of highlight a very similar point. That like, you know, there's certain spots where sometimes you trap, sometimes you try and make your play for the best long-term expected value, and sometimes it goes against you. But like most of the time, it doesn't go against you. And most of the time, you know, I think in this spot, in both spots, I won multiple bets that I would not have won had I played the hand differently. Either played the hand differently on the flop with a raise, or played the hand differently on the turn with a bet in the first hand or a raise in the second hand. And so these are kind of some of the hopefully more high-level things that some of the pros are thinking. I hope you enjoyed this. Follow me at Alec Torelli on Twitter, Instagram. On my YouTube, I'll put out a video about this entire session. I know we only got to break down 2 hands. I played probably 5 or 6 interesting ones, so I'll definitely break all those down on my Conscious Poker YouTube, so check that out. We got an interesting lineup for today. I'll run through it really quick, and really looking forward to the game today. It's going to be fun. Some new players here, too. We got Dentist Dave is back. We got Rampage back in town. My first time playing with him. That'll be fun. Obviously, he's coming to battle, so that'll be a fun lineup with him, Mariano as well. Back in action, coming off a big win. Congrats to Mariano. Jabril's back in town. Friend of mine, excited to play with him again. And Will, liquor store owner, and Mike X is back too, so we'll see him on the stream. And then one more guy who I hadn't played with, I believe his name's, sorry, butchering this. Sorry, we got one more player. Alex, who I don't know, I've never played with before, so wild card, maybe. I have no idea what to expect, so I'll just kind of have to adjust in real time. Maybe we'll play the bounty game, maybe we'll play the stand-up game. Excited for the lineup. It's going to be fun. We're going to battle. If you see this ahead of time on my Twitter, I'm doing a free giveaway of a Conscious Poker membership. It's a $1,000 product. We're giving it away for free to whoever most closely guesses my results. So just go to Alec Torelli on Twitter. It's my latest tweet. Make sure you enter before the stream starts. Just retweet it with however much you think I'm going to win or lose. Whoever gets closest, I'll give him a free $1,000 membership at Conscious Poker. So thank you guys for your support. Come say hi on social media. I'm super friendly. I read all my DMs, read all my emails. Happy to connect with you guys, help you on your journey if I can. And thanks for your support. Much love, everyone, and best of luck. Stay tuned. Our game's coming up on The Hustler.
Raise it up. Chat Pro. Slow roll. Never fold. Raise it up. Chat Pro. Slow roll. Never fold.
Raise it up. Chat Pro. Slow roll. Never fold. Slow roll. Never fold. Slow roll. Never fold.
Raise it up. Raise it up. Chat Pro.